Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is where we talk sports with you 7 nights a week at 412-575-2600. We're live tonight on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. So if you're driving along, give us a shout or tweet at KDPomp, at the Pony Express. Andrew Fillipponi up at the Fan, where we had a very busy day, sort of unexpected, based on how quickly this meeting with Kyle Dubas and Mike Sullivan, it didn't take long for a conclusion, and it was to move on. They looked at it as a mutual separation. It sounded today, though, Pony, like it was Kyle Dubas saying that they need a fresh start, and he was the one who made it sound like he was the guy who kind of generated this decision.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I think we've seen Mike Tomlin at press conferences say today that I don't always tell the media and the reporters the truth. My opinion is pretty simple, Bob. If Mike Sullivan did not have opportunities with teams like the Rangers, I still think he would be the Penguins head coach. I think the fact that he has so many suitors out there and a chance to make even more money and possibly get to a team that gives him a better chance to win, that's what accelerated and expedited this decision, because it's been 11 days since the last time the Penguins played a hockey game. So many coaches have been fired since then. And if Kyle Dubas is true to his word and really was contemplating this, throughout the season, then if it was that cut and dried, that black and white, I don't know why he didn't just give Mike Sullivan his walking papers as soon as the season was over. So my opinion is this was a decision that, yeah, it's mutual, in that the guy that's been the 10-year head coach here with 2 Stanley Cups was wanted by other teams. And like Mike Tomlin likes to say, he likes hostages, volunteers, not hostages. I don't think Mike Sullivan wanted to be here anymore once he discovered there were opportunities out there with better teams.
Yeah, and he will, I'm sure, reset the market when it comes to salary, because he will be in big demand, and there are right now 5 other openings. The Rangers are the one, he has a good relationship with Chris Drury, their general manager there, goes back to 4 Nations and beyond. The only thing is, I don't know where they are. They may be in the middle of a rebuild themselves. You got Boston, which is not a good team moving forward in terms of what they have available. So that could be a tough situation. Chicago,
and here's an interesting
Anaheim.
one to keep an eye on, Bob. And you went through some of these today on your radio program, which was excellent as per usual.
Thanks.
What happens? And I know he's a Boston guy, but what happens if St. Louis beats Winnipeg? And you've got the team that had the most points in the Western Conference, and they're out in the first round again. Now, a lot of these American players or coaches don't necessarily want to live in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But when it's Connor Hellebuck as the goaltender there, who's going to win the Vezina, and a team
Although
that
he's looked bad in the series so far, and he looked terrible last night.
He has. He's gotten pulled the last 2 games, but I'm just wondering, he might view that team as a team that's maybe a head coach away from winning a Stanley Cup. I don't know. The bottom line is what you said and what others have said. Mike Sullivan and his agency realized that this was an opportunity for him to get himself a lot more money, a lot more job security, maybe a lot more say with a new organization, and I think he's ready to take that.
Plus, there's a Vancouver situation that's still playing out with Rick Tocchet. Not sure what they're going to do there. Jim Rutherford relieved them of the option they had. They weren't going to exercise it, but they say they still want him. And then you have a team like Edmonton. To use your Winnipeg example, I'll talk about Edmonton, because if the Oilers get eliminated in the first round, although they played a good game last night to come back, if they're out, they may make a change there, and he may sense an opportunity, or they may sense an opportunity to say, hey, we have McDavid, we have Draisaitl, we have Bouchard, we have a lot of talent here. We need a coach like you to come here. So there's a lot of possibilities. So I don't expect anything to happen fairly soon, do you?
Depends on how much the Rangers job thing is down the road. And if Mike, Bob, let's go back to the 4 Nations tournament. Okay, Mike Sullivan was playing New York Rangers players who, in my opinion, had no business being on that team, and giving them ice time in games that, frankly, there were better players available. It really makes me wonder, was he kind of paving the way to take that job? I wonder that now in hindsight, because there really was not a justification. How do you play Chris Kreider on that team? Can you explain that to me?
Well, Chris Drury had a lot to do with who was on that team, too, and he's their general manager.
Well, there you go. So they were working. So there you go. I mean, they were working together on that team. And who knows how much that tournament, how much conversation was going on. They had downtime in Boston, in Montreal. Maybe this is where this whole thing was set up and brokered. And Kyle Dubas might have found out about that. Maybe that was enough for Kyle Dubas to say maybe Mike Sullivan's not the right guy for this job anymore. I don't know. It's anyone's guess. But some things have clearly happened here that made Mike Sullivan, after he had said for a long time, this is where I want to be and these are the guys I want to coach. He changed his mind somewhere along the way, and that's how we get this situation where in late April, we've got a head coach change getting made.
Our KDKA.com/connect coach, or the question of the night, what kind of coach do you want the Penguins to go after? 2 choices for NHL coaching experience. We'll talk about some of these guys coming up. They're retreads, many of them, but then the other option is young and upcoming. So far, that is the leading category. We're going to take a break here, Andrew. We had a lot of people on the line. They want to talk about this, and we'll also get into the Steelers draft. We thought tonight we'd be spending a lot of time on that, and then this news happened. It's all coming up as we continue live right here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our Xfinity mobile tweet of the night. Comes from BR Open Ice, and it talks about Sullivan's coaching career. Again, tremendous job here, what he did over the course of 10 years. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. As you know, most coaching wins, 409 in Penguin history. The only American head coach with multiple Stanley Cup wins, 8 playoff appearances. And, you know, the undoing was, of course, lack of postseason success. Back in 2018, after they won back-to-back, that's one of those, I think they basically just kind of ran out of gas. I remember that series against Washington, and it just was a long run. It finally ended. But then you had the Islanders series, and the one that really was interesting was the Montreal series. Those were 2 where they thought they'd be able to win in advance, and they did not. And then ever since then, it's been, you know, no playoff appearances in 3 straight years. So I have to ask you, Andrew, we have Rick Tocchet's name. That's, you know, what is FanDuel saying? We got Tocchet, we have Peter Laviolette, we have Torts being mentioned, Joel Quenneville, you have David Quinn, who was on Sullivan's staff, and they got rid of all those guys. So I think that's not happening. What do you think the odds are, and who's the next Penguin coach?
Yeah, I don't think it's any of those guys. You know, I would be very surprised. If this were still the Burkle-Lemieux team, I could see possibly Rick Tocchet, because of the relationship there. But I think Kyle Dubas is going to want to kind of distance himself from the Sullivan regime. And I think he's going to want to find his own guy, find a younger coach. I believe what he said today about the process in taking so much time to find a coach, in scouring junior hockey and college hockey in the American Hockey League, and maybe looking through those candidates, younger guys, maybe assistants as well, on good teams and guys that come with a lot of high credentials and good references. So my guess is it'll be somebody who's under 50. I hate to be an ageist. I'm getting up there too, but I think it's going to be a younger coach. And I think it's going to be someone who's, you know, I hate to say this, but it's almost like a Derek Shelton, Bob, in that it's going to be someone who I think is going to look for their first job and be willing to take a first job, even if it means that there might be some pain and suffering the first couple of years, because you're hoping that eventually the rebuilding, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So that would be my guess. Somebody who's not on that list that you just named.
Just like Carberry down in Washington, they you know, as a 43-year-old coach, making the best of his first opportunity. So we'll see how that goes. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to be interviewed here. He said cast a wide web, and that's what he intends to do. So we won't expect an announcement anytime in the next month. We got a lot of phone calls, Andrew. Let's get to them. Our number 1 Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night is Chris in Penn Hills, who's first up tonight. Hello, Chris.
Yes, hi Bob, hi Andrew. But I believe the Penguins should try to sign Rick Tocchet.
Well, I mean, he's in an interesting situation out west. He hasn't had a big resume. Of course, he spent time in Arizona where they didn't have much to work with. Last year in Vancouver, he was outstanding, and they got a whole bunch of points, I think 110 or 11 points. This year was not so good, but they had all sorts of problems with JT Miller and Pedersen. But he still has connections, although, as Andrew said, not necessarily to Kyle Dubas. So I would imagine Dubas is going to have people that he's dealt with over the years, you know, to deal with. But, you know, Tocchet will get a job. I still believe he's going to end up in Philadelphia. That's what I've been thinking all along. How about you?
That's a good point, Bob. You know, the Sidney Crosby conversation that Dubas brought up today made me feel like Sid had a feeling this was going to happen and that Mike Sullivan was going to take another job, because when Dubas made it sound like it was such a brief conversation, we know how much Sid likes Mike Sullivan. If he got wind of the idea that it was Kyle Dubas who was forcing Mike Sullivan out, I don't know. I think Sid would have wanted a better explanation than just a very brief phone call. So that also makes me think, Bob, that Mike Sullivan left on his own accord and left on his own volition for the Rangers or another job.
Interesting. We have a tweet here. It comes from Janet T., and she wants to know, what would you categorize the Penguin situation as? It seems like Dubas has not necessarily used the word rebuild. He's kind of used transition as the word he's thrown out there quite a bit. I don't know what I would consider it to be, but again, he doubled down and kind of walked the narrow line there and is on that fence about what this team really is, trying to win because he has aging guys who need to win one more, at least get in a position to do it, and then all these young guys that he would like to see implemented into their roster. So what is it?
Yeah, you can't win that way. You got to pick a lane. You can't try to do both. You can't have it both ways. So I think he's got to try to find, the Blues, actually, as I say that, the Blues kind of tried to do that. And look, I mean, they had a really good second half of the season. They made a big coaching change, though. They brought Jim Montgomery in.
Right.
They had a lot of young guys that came through. They didn't trade their captain. They kept some of their veterans around from the last Stanley Cup team. So, maybe there is that, very difficult line to walk where you rebuild and you still compete for a playoff spot at the same time. But it's very, very difficult to do. They do have $26 million in cap space. And, would Kyle Dubas really give half of that money, Bob, to Mitch Marner? That's the question on everybody's mind. Is he going to be able to convince his old pal from Toronto to come here and sign on to this and maybe try to expedite or accelerate that rebuild at a pretty penny? He already tried that with Erik Karlsson and it failed. Might he do that with one of his former players in Toronto?
Yeah, it would be very costly. It would have been cheaper to just keep Gensel around at what he's making versus what I think Marner may get. So we'll see. Let's go back to the Lions. Lebanon County is our next destination. We have Scott on the line. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Pomp. Why Sully was not fired sooner or something, I'll never understand, but I'm glad the Penguins finally made the right call. About time they did, and should they hire somebody else, I just hope it's not John Tortorella because I don't like him at all.
His name always comes up. It's amazing how many lives he has as a hockey coach, but he's always out there. Laviolette just got fired. He's been fired multiple times. Seems like everybody on this list has been fired at least once. That's why I think, to your point, Andrew, and I agree with this, I think he's going to look at junior ranks, college coach. There are a lot of great college coaches out there. So
yeah.
Who knows how it's going to end up, but he also dismissed everyone else on that staff today, so I think he wanted to just wipe it clean and start over.
Yeah, the Denver coach, the Western Michigan coach who led them to a national championship, all these guys I think should at least get conversations and maybe interviews. So that's what I would do. Bob, I think it's ridiculous that the Penguins couldn't keep Mike Sullivan under contract and then get something back for him from the Rangers or the Bruins or whoever it is. Kyle Dubas said the NHL changed that rule, and they don't allow that anymore. That makes no sense to me. If you have a guy under contract and someone else wants him and is willing to pay him more to go there and leave, you should be able to get something back for that. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's a bad job by the NHL, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have an asset. That's a big asset, and you can get a number of draft picks for those guys. We've seen it work in the NFL. That's something that I agree with you should be still in play here, and it's just not. Mike in Ross Township. Hey, Mike, make it quick, please.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Hey, Mike.
I probably haven't heard this from anybody else, but Johnson, I think, deserved to be fired. He got too still. He wasn't making any changes. I think all he was worried about was getting Sidney Crosby points. I mean, I'm a big Penguin fan. I haven't been all my life. I'm 71 years old. But anytime if people put Sullivan on Malkin's line, they get points from more than one line. That's all everybody kept saying. Oh, they only have one line scoring. That's why he put the good players with Crosby.
I think Mike Sullivan was a little disenchanted with the way things were going with this roster. I've heard him
100% agree.
If not once. I've heard him 100 times at these post-game press conferences where he's complaining about it's basically simple. You have to play in our defensive end, make things simple, get the puck out. All these things he's kept talking about, and it never changed. So is that on him or on the roster or both?
Bob, I think if he believed in Kyle Dubas' plan, he'd still be here. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah,
I don't think he'd be gone.
I don't know what the plan is. That's the problem. I mean, they brought in and they spent a lot of money here, and they haven't gotten the results they needed from that. So, is the plan to try to win now and continue this, or to move? As you said, you have to choose a lane. You absolutely do. If you're trying to do both, we'll get you nowhere.
I agree.
All right, real quick, let me go. We have a lot of Steeler calls, too, in here, so I want to get one in. That's Jerry and Franklin before we go to a break. So, Jerry, again, I ask you to make it quick if you can.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. I was away most of the weekend, I did see the picks the Steelers made, and I see they got Will Howard from Ohio State. What do you guys think are his pluses and minuses, and why did he fall down to round 6?
I think they all fell,
Well,
more so than you thought. But I think quickly, his big thing is he's operating on a big stage, made key throws at critical times of big games, and I think just being around that program helped him out.
He fell to the 6th round because he had one of the worst NFL scouting combine throwing sessions of all time, is why he fell. But other than that, I mean, I'm with you, Bob. I think it's a great deal. I think his potential is tremendous. For a guy who's that big, moves well, he's got like 4 touchdowns of over 60 yards as a rusher, very athletic in that regard, and look at the way he came on after that Michigan loss. So to get that player in the 6th round, I thought that was tremendous value for the Steelers.
Yeah, value is the key word there, and he'll have the luxury of waiting around where Aaron Rodgers does his thing. He could learn from that, who knows? But there's upside there. How much? We'll see as time goes on. But it's a good pick, considering they needed somebody else in that room for now. We got to take a break. Come back with more. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA Plus, and if you're driving around 93.7 The Fan. KDK News at 11 starts in about 6 minutes. Josh Taylor at the anchor desk tonight. Josh.
Hey, Bob, tonight here's what we're working on. A deadly shooting near a local elementary school ignites parents' worst fears. Plus, a mega church in Moon Township making its case to supervisors again, and Ray Petlin's tracking the potential for severe storms. All ahead at 11. See you then.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Andrew, we've seen some great playoff action in the NBA and NHL tonight. Florida came back from the dead to beat Tampa to go up 3-1, 2 goals in 11 seconds late. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers just simply blew away Miami. That's my team from the East. I know there are a lot of good teams in this entire league, but that team and Oklahoma City playing very well. Your thoughts?
Well, that Heat series win against Miami was the most, the Cavs series win over Miami, excuse me, most lopsided series ever in NBA history. As far as point differential in a 4-game sweep. So they just absolutely destroyed a team that's had great playoff history. So could the Cleveland Cavs in the post-LeBron era win the NBA championship, Bob? I'd say absolutely, but my prediction, the Pacers are going to knock them off in the next round.
No.
Remember that.
They did such great job. Ty Jerome
TJ
has
McConnell.
fit in.
Don't doubt the McConnell family, Bob.
I don't doubt him, but I think
yes,
Cleveland is
You're doubting.
extremely talented. We're due for a break because we're out of time. Thanks, Andrew. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Have a good night.